It is Thursday, October the 8th, 2020. I've already had enough of the fly jokes. We all saw it, folks. Everyone made the same joke. Yes, flies can smell bullshit. Blah, 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 blah. Ha, 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 ha. Dumb. Build a bridge. Move on. All of that and a whole lot more on episode number 40, the Dino Raja episode. If you're not down with Dino Raja, turn off the fucking podcast right now. Episode of Complaints and Observations.
The greatest podcast hosted by someone who knows so precious little about almost everything. A journey into the mediocre mind of an exceptionally average person. This is Complaints and Observations with Dave LaPointe. Who the hell is Dave LaPointe?
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me, all three of you that listen to my show. Coming to you from the dining room today of the new broadcast palace. However, the actual studio, that's months away. I would say months away before that's ready and done and usable. So it's gonna sound like fucking shit. There's an echo in here. I tried another room on Monday, still had an echo. The house is like 75 fucking years old. So it'll probably fucking echo everywhere. Eventually I'll have a spot to actually record this crap that nobody listens to, that I just can't seem to figure out what to do with. Oh, you have a podcast? What's it about? Nothing. I mean, once upon a time, that was a funny premise. For a podcast, though, it's stupid because people listen to things they want to listen to. People don't want to tune in and listen to nothing. Also, I still have this fucking cold. Yeah, it's bullshit. Not pleased how stuffy and congested I still am. And it makes me wonder, I wonder if it's allergies more than anything. I wonder if I had the cold, beat the cold, and now I'm just allergic to this house. Wouldn't surprise me. But it is what it is. What can you do? The big thing today that I wanted to talk about in length is 2 days ago, we lost an absolute legend. Eddie Van Halen passed away after smoking roughly 6 million cigarettes and then developing multiple cancers over the course of the last 15 to 20 years. But so it just sort of goes in line with everything else in this year. And it's such a stupid cliched thing to say, oh, 2020 sucks. Well, it does. It's just it's heightened more so. I mean, every year has pretty much sucked for different reasons, but this one just seems as if shit's piling on. And so the other thing that's piling on is how many people are saying 2020 sucks. All right, same with the fly jokes. We fucking get it, okay? Build a bridge. It's fine. But the death of Eddie Van Halen has once again cast a pall over pretty much everything. Not for everybody, but for a lot of us. Specifically, people of my age and of musical tastes. Not everybody loved Van Halen. Not too many people loved Van Halen as much as I. Which is a shame. You're missing out. What can you do? First and foremost, though, fuck cancer. That needs to be said. Fuck cancer for the 8 billionth time. Fuck cancer. It's just terrible. He was only 65, so he's still very young. But as I mentioned, he'd been sick for at least 15 years. Tongue cancer, throat cancer. Eventually, it spread throughout his body and into his brain. So my guess is the last few months for him were horrifically uncomfortable. But the thing with Ed is he lived like a crazy person on and off for the last 40 years or so. That'll take a toll on anyone that's not named Keith Richards. Him and his brother Alex drank obscene levels of alcohol for a long time. I read something yesterday that Alex Van Halen in the 80s would wake up, open a case of tall, like 40-ounce malt liquors, drink half the case, pass out, wake up, drink 2 or 3 more, then might eat dinner, then finish the case. Every day. How many times did that guy fucking go to the bathroom? That's been pissing his brains out. He probably resembled a fucking raisin. He was so dehydrated. That's ridiculous. Anyways, but these guys drank all kinds of different things for a very long time. At one point in Eddie's life, he was drinking essentially a case of wine a day. Would never put it in a glass. He always would just drink it straight out of the bottle. Real classy wino. It's not exactly known what kind of drugs he was doing, but he himself said that he did drugs. So it sucks, all of it. And look, please quit smoking. The dude at one point had a third of his tongue removed, and he kept smoking. And yes, I'm sure it's very difficult, but it'll be even harder if you don't make an effort. But even after the tongue thing, like he was living with at the time, he was living with someone who would literally take a biopsy of his tongue like every so often to see if the cancer had come back. So he had already lost a third of his tongue, and he kept getting the tongue biopsied after that. So who the fuck knows how much of a tongue he had left? Probably not much. But he got really fucked up after the tongue thing, and like I said, drinking wine by the case. Sammy Hagar's book mentioned how he saw him in like 2006, and his teeth were fucking rotted out of his mouth. There are stories about him pulling fucking teeth out of his head with a pair of pliers because his tooth was bothering him, so he just pulled it out. He didn't bathe his pants. He wore like the same fucking like military cargo pants held up by a piece of rope. He wore combat boots that had holes in them, held together by gaffer's tape. Gross. Like the man was just not well. This was around the time of the amazing Fred Durst story. If you haven't heard this story, please Google it. Just Google Eddie Van Halen, Fred Durst, and read the story. It's outstanding. Outstanding. My sense is that Fred Durst let out a audible sigh of relief when he found out that Eddie passed away. Anyways, look, the soundtrack of my life, and more impactfully, the first half of my life, is probably 65% Van Halen, or Van Halen adjacent, as I was a big fan of solo David Lee Roth. I was a young man when I was a boy. I was a wee lad. when the split happened. Too young to understand the whole reason and the schematics, if you will, of the split. Other than the fact that they didn't get along. That's what MTV News told me. Tabitha Soren would tell me what the deal was at the time. Or Martha Quinn. Martha Quinn. But I love that crap. Whatever. But when Sammy Hagar joined the band, there was an absolute difference. I mean, look, David Lee Roth, for all of his gifts as a frontman, can't sing, never could. Sammy Hagar, on the other hand, the man could sing. He was an excellent singer, great vocalist. So there was a definite different sound. I mean, obviously, part of the reason, in hindsight, that Roth left is Eddie's insistence on using the synthesizer more. It's like mid '80s. Oh, hey, let's use more synth. Okay. For whatever reason, Roth didn't like it and thought he could do better. His solo band was dynamite. A dynamite solo band. So, yeah, it was that. But the signature sound was still there. Eddie's signature sound was still there. And it was awesome. But like I said, different. It was basically two different bands. And I think the fact that you could do that, it's very AC/DC-ish, where, the Bon Scott days and then the Brian Johnson days, they were infinitely more successful with Brian Johnson, like monetarily, just like Van Halen were infinitely more successful with Sammy Hagar. Just in terms of sheer, record sales and chart singles and all that useless bullshit. Still awesome. I got to see the band a few times. It was really odd how, 1984, when that came out, I was 6. So obviously, didn't think my parents were going to take me to a concert at 6 years old. They didn't. 5150 was like 1986, I think. OU 812, 1988, 89. And then For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge was 91. That was probably around the time where I started to, be interested in wanting to see them. And I know my cousin had brought it up, but I was probably, like I said, 12, 13 years old. And she was a bit older. So it's funny how that worked out. But saw them a couple of times. They toured in 95, and I'm pretty sure I saw them on that tour. I was trying to think the other day if I had, and I honestly, I couldn't remember. So I have to check the old pile of ticket stubs, see if I was at one of those shows. But 98, they toured with Gary Cherone, the ill-fated Van Halen 3 tour. My friends and I were banned for life from Great Woods that night. Banned for life. We got caught drinking in the parking lot. I'll never forget that event staff guy as long as I live. What a fucking cock-sucking douchebag that guy was. Here we are, we're like 19, 20 years old. We weren't causing any trouble. We're like drinking a few beers in my buddy's car, and it was like, like we had committed some fucking egregious felony in the parking lot at Great Woods. The problem is that we didn't go into the show when the show started, so we weren't interested in the opening acts. In hindsight, we should have been. Not that it mattered. It makes for a much better story. Where the fucking douchey event staff guy is sitting there reading a card to us saying that we're banned for life. And then the cop's like, oh, just take their tickets. Took the tickets and off we went. And that was it. Gary Cherone lost his voice that night. So after 3 songs, they cut the show off. And then they played the next night, and I went back and saw them. So it was great. Good time. There were a couple shows after that, but I missed out on the true power of the band, like that 82 to 92 or so. missed out on that. But I still had all the records, still had tapes, CDs, and honestly, I'll never forget the 1984 album on tape. I had that. I wore the fuck out of that tape. I wore that fucking thing out. Great album. And the thing, Eddie, he knew how great he was, and apparently one of his flaws is that when he was fucked up, he liked to remind everyone around him of that and how they needed him to be successful. Not wrong. I saw on Twitter yesterday somebody mentioned, what happens if the band is called Lee Roth instead of Van Halen? They're not the same. I don't think so. Who knows? But the man had a gift. He had an absolute gift. And I wonder if that's how it is when you're clearly better than every other human being on earth at a single thing at a single time, where you just you know it, you feel it, and you feel the need to remind people of it. And look, I mean, it's all subjective. I mean, I can say he was the greatest guitarist ever, but there's a long list of people who fall into that very similar category. So, but look, he was a very strange man, cursed by a variety of demons while possessing a skill that few others could ever dream of, and shared that skill and that gift for others, to everyone to enjoy. And this one stings. It stings bad. And I've already spent a ton of time watching, various live performances on YouTube, listening to songs, and it sucks because Van Halen was one of those bands that for the last 10 years you sit around, you wait, and you're like, all right, when's the reunion? When's the tour coming again? When is this going to happen? When are we going to see this again? When are they going to get their fucking shit together? Even though they were in their 60s, I mean, the fucking Stones are still cranking and they're in their 70s. They're 10 years older. They're 10 years older than fucking Van Halen. And they're on not just tours, but world tours. They were supposed to do it this year. Was supposed to be a world tour for the Stones. $300 tickets at fucking Gillette Stadium. All right, Mick. How much more do you? What the fuck, dude? Huh? But you always had that hope in the back of your mind that someday it was going to come back. Like when they toured again with Roth the last time, which was, I think that was like 2012. It didn't feel the same. Partially because Michael Anthony wasn't a part of the band, and so the vocals didn't sound the same. One, because Dave couldn't sing, and he clearly couldn't sing in 2012, just like he couldn't sing in 1982. But yeah, it's a bummer. It's different than when Dimebag died. I mean, Dimebag, that was a shock. That's what that was. That was completely different. This, you knew it was coming, but it was a surprise when it finally came, because you knew he was sick and it was just a matter of time. Plus, he was kind of adverse to chemotherapy, from what I understand. Can't say I blame him. Chemotherapy is disgusting. But anyways, real bummer. And everything I just said has been said 1,000 times. Nothing new, nothing exciting, very boring, monotone, congested nonsense. So, but that's it. Anyways, rest in power, Ed, and fuck cancer. So I put out the phone number the other day, 617-65-RIP-'em. Didn't hear from anybody. But again, this is what happens when you have 4 listeners. They all have your number anyway, so they'll just text you and tell you what's going on. But I still enjoy the call-in feature, 617-65-RIP-'em. And this is the part of the show where I, think about what I want to do with the show, seeing as I have no clue. But if you'd like to be on the show, let me know. My feelers for guests on the show have been roundly rejected. I don't think I was shooting for the moon. A couple of newspaper writers and a couple of authors about topics that I found interesting that I would like to sort of talk to people about, but roundly rejected. Oh, you don't have enough listeners. Yes, I know. That's the whole reason for having you on the program, sir, ma'am. Whatever. I'm bitter. That's okay. We'll get there. I wanted to talk about a couple things. Obviously, again, the pandemic is lingering in the background here. So the NFL and the pandemic, the way that they're dealing with this thing, I don't hate it, but at the same time, I hate it. I don't think that they were entirely prepared. I think they thought they were prepared. But they were not prepared to handle what would happen when something like what's happening in Tennessee happened. And they should have known, using baseball as a reference, where you had multiple teams with large outbreaks. The thing about Tennessee is it's spread out more. I mean, the Titans have had, I think it's up to like 22 different people now test positive. But over the course of like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Whereas like Philadelphia, Miami, St. Louis, in baseball, it was a very compact amount of time. My ears are popping right now. Fucking A. God. So I don't think they were very much, I don't think they were prepared for the inevitable, really, because that's what it was. I mean, it was inevitable that shit like that was going to happen. You just knew. It's like a flu. Whenever the flu happens in sports, that shit goes around a clubhouse like wildfire. It happens all the time. You see it at least once, twice a year. Seems to happen to the Bruins in like February every single year during their Ice Capades road trip, where they're away from Boston for 2 weeks. A flu bug tends to go around. So it happens all the time, and you could see it coming, yet for whatever reason, they didn't prepare for this thing. Now, the thing with the Titans is and I heard this today, they were not told last week that the game was going to be postponed until like Friday, I think. So they got together and practiced away from the facility on Wednesday. However, at the time, that was not against the NFL's protocol, which really makes no fucking sense at all. And really, common sense should have prevailed there, but it didn't. I mean, you're dealing with professional athletes. You're dealing with people who smash their heads against one another for a living. So you can't expect them to be smart. I mean, you can in some regards. You can expect the quarterback to have his wits about him because he's the only one not getting smashed in the face every week. However, the Titans quarterback is Ryan Tannehill. I don't know the guy. I'm making assumptions. Who knows? But they didn't think this through. They don't have they can't do this sport in a bubble. Doesn't exist. So you can't do it. Theoretically, you could. You put all the teams in You put the AFC in New York, the NFC in LA, split them up. No cross-conference games until the Super Bowl. You have games every day. So, I mean, that way you could work it out. There's plenty of hotels. I mean, you'd have to lock that shit down. Every hotel, every stadium would have to be locked down. And you'd probably still run into these problems, but it just wasn't feasible. So now you have the Patriots where you've got one guy who tests positive early on last week. One guy. Not early on, but midweek last week. Actually, no. When did he find out? Friday? Saturday? Nah, I can't remember. Let me look. Anyway, Cam Newton test positive 5 days ago. No, that can't be right. Yeah, maybe. Whoa, Jesus! All right, Shefty. Sorry. Yeah, the 3rd. Which was what, Saturday? Yeah. Okay. Well, so he found out Friday. So end of the week, Friday. And allegedly had dinner that night now with Stephon Gilmore, who has COVID. So right now we're at 3 total cases for the Patriots. They still went ahead and played Monday night, separated guys. And the funny part is they, sending guys in 2 planes as if that's going to make a fucking lick of difference, because then when they actually get there, they're going to be sharing a locker room, sharing a field. Doesn't really matter, does it? You're going to be exposed to those guys anyway. God. So, didn't really matter. The funny part is you've got all these talking heads in the media like, oh, the Patriots shouldn't have played, blah, 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 blah. Well, it's Thursday. They played on Monday. It's, anywhere from a 2 to 5 day incubation period for this thing. You could test positive up to 13 days after exposure, yada, 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 yada. Most cases are 2 to 5 days. We're in that window from Monday or from Sunday or, whatever. Point being, I don't think the NFL did a good enough job of preparing for when this was going to happen. The inevitable was coming. And you've seen what's happened in baseball. Baseball, I have a feeling that these teams really fucking buckled down once when the Phillies, I think with the Phillies were the last team that had the real problem. Once that happened, they buckled down. The thing what they're doing now with the playoffs, I really don't fucking get it. What's the point? You're gonna put teams in a bubble now? And it's not even a bubble. Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, good effort, I guess. Especially for the World Series, apparently they're going to let people in. They're going to have 13,000 fans. All right, well, they're not mingling with the players, so it is what it is. It'll be funny to see how that works out. The funny part is I don't think anybody gives a flying fuck about baseball right now. It's so strange to me. I read an article this morning about the 95 Braves. Mariners, 95 Mariners. That was 25 fucking years ago. Bananas. That team was fun as hell. That series where they beat the Yankees in the playoffs, fun as hell. And it's funny to think back like how many people cared about baseball then and how nobody gives a fuck about baseball now. Look, I'll always love baseball, don't get me wrong, but yeah, nobody gives a fuck right now. It's odd. But the whole point of the story, of the talking point, is how the NFL has dealt with COVID, and I don't think they've done a good enough job. And part of the now you're hearing a lot of fucking people, especially on sports radio here in Boston, is that they're letting the NFL off the hook and saying that it's the Titans' fault, the Patriots' fault, yada yada yada. It's not wrong. It is. However, the NFL has some. They have to have some sort of responsibility here to put these fucking protocols in place. They were having a 5-day period after a second negative test before a player come back. Well, they got rid of that. Gone. Asymptomatic players need 2 negative tests. 24 hours later, they can come back. All right. I'm not a doctor. Don't claim to be one. Never will be. Too stupid. But I find it odd. It's just weird the way that they prepared for this thing, and now they're trying to play catch up. They're issuing all these memos to the teams and to the players union, and trying to they're reacting, which I guess it's good, but they should have been proactive from the get go. They should have seen this coming, especially when they were the last league to get started. They had so much time to get all this shit in order, and they waited way too fucking long. And it's on the players too. The players union should have fucking said something like, "Hey, what the fuck are you guys doing?" Yeah, I don't know. Weird. Anyway. I just listened back to the last segment. This sounds so bad. Like the echo is fucking awful. Oh, I'm at such a fucking I'm at a loss here. The sound is terrible. I don't know. I may have to just end the pod for now and then start when this thing is when I finally have the space. So fucking disappointing. I don't know. Maybe I need to end this pod and start the new pod. I love the name of the show though. It's a great name. And I've already invested into some gear. Full kit wanker this weekend on the golf course. Full kit wanker. Very exciting. I don't know. Maybe cut it back to once a week. Problem is, I can't. My wife works from home on Monday, so I can't sit here and do this on Monday because you'll hear her. And then I will, obviously interrupt her work. Or, God willing, I actually get a job and won't be able to do this during the day. Oh, fuck. Yeah, I don't know. It's too bad because I like it. I enjoy it. And I was trying to make something of it too, which is, I waited way too long to try and make something of it, which is the story of my fucking life. Behind on everything, slow as fuck, lazy. That's just how I am. And I just burped into the microphone. There comes a time when you have to step back and look at what you're doing and realize what you're doing is fucking dumb. Yeah. Where I just spend 10 minutes talking about, well, not even talking, rambling about, the NFL COVID preparedness. which I'm sure will be moot by the end of the day. Something else will come along. Oh well. I was going to talk about, customer service. These issues that we've had since we moved with Lowe's and Comcast. I wish I had a bigger audience just to fucking call those two companies out onto the mat and tell them how fucking awful they are. But I don't. So I'm still gonna say, I mean, those two companies are fucking dog shit. Two dog shit companies. And in the case of Comcast, that's a fucking full-on monopoly. You're not gonna convince me otherwise. I cannot get the same internet from another ISP that I can get from Comcast. Not even fucking close to the same. Like, I have the ability to get Verizon, but it is fucking trash. Satellite internet, even worse. So they got you by the fucking nuts. Lowe's, you have another option. You can go to Home Depot. But Home Depot isn't much better. So I'm going to be an Ace Hardware guy moving forward. For all of my hardware needs, Ace Hardware. And they don't have everything that you need, but what can you do, you know? Anyway, that'll do it for the show. I will mercifully end this nonsense. So you don't have to listen to this tinny sound anymore. Or it sounds like I'm in a fucking giant conference room. Actually just sitting in my house. My wife's house. My congested self. We'll see what happens with the program. I might cut it back to once a week. Just so I can do it and so that I have an outlet. But I'm not going to do anything serious until we can actually have a more secure and better place to do the show. It doesn't sound like dog shit. However, look, today was supposed to be Lock of the Week. I haven't heard from either of those guys for the last few days, so I'm not even going to bother. Same with Best Bets, mainly because nobody knows what the fuck is going on with football, so who the fuck knows? I do have a best bet, though. Let me just pull this up so I don't forget it. I do like the Bucks tonight, but that's not going to be my best bet. So, I am going to go with the Arizona Cardinals this weekend. They are a -7.5. How it's only -7.5, I have no fucking idea. The Jets are a train wreck. They're gonna have Joe Flacco this weekend. So yeah, we'll see. So I like the Cardinals -7.5. That is my best bet. Of the three of us, I am currently in last. And I believe Banksley is 1, Jackie Padley Jr. number 2, and your humble host, numero 3. But yeah, so that'll do it for the program. I will talk to you folks at some point. Who knows when? Not that anyone listens or cares anyway. So take care of yourself, please. Take care of each other. Godspeed. Ta-ta.